It's a joke that no one else has ever come up with. It's because you guys probably haven't seen it before, right? Like, don't know.
It's a good point. And when we end up meeting for the first time, I can't wait to shatter everybody's illusions about how tall I actually am. When there's a picture of her next to me and she's 3 feet taller than I am.
We'll have to get people to like hold me up and then just take a photo from like the waist up so that I'm actually taller than you.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do it just to keep the meme alive for as long as we possibly can.
We'll just stack you on top of Magnet. That should work. Yeah.
There you go.
Just use them like a footstool.
I'm going to say, it's either Magnet or Dowie, and Dowie I don't think has the upper body strength to put somebody on his shoulders for longer than 2 seconds before he just collapses
barely has the upper
weight.
body strength to wear a t-shirt. I don't know what the fuck you think you're talking. Yeah.
Oh man,
props to him. That man's the real
fan
MVP
video
for
they
that.
did, where like he puts on like Kendrew's like massive
he puts
jersey.
on Kenny's
like,
jersey,
and he's like, well, "Where's yours, Dowie?" And it's like this big. It's the fucking best thing.
Yeah,
in the
they
world.
get him like one of the baby jerseys.
Yeah, it's like for the baby thing, right? No baby can fit in there. That's the best thing about it. It's brilliant.
It's so great. Anyway, welcome to the Hammered Podcast. We occasionally talk about esports.
Occasionally. We market ourselves as an esports podcast, but we only talk about it for maybe 5%. And it's brought to you by this 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts from a guy named Skatefish. The title is Skatefish, and the entire content of the review is just Skatefish is watching.
Thank you, Skatefish. We
appreciate it, Skatefish.
How does a fish skate?
What with its fins?
All right, I just found the next 45-minute tangent we're going to launch on. The next part of the podcast. It's going to be how fish skate and how that name was coined.
I mean, is it on roller skates or is it on a skateboard?
Look, Geo, I don't know if you've seen... Okay, Geo, there's a very good documentary on this that you should watch. It's called Shark Tale. I would recommend... Okay, it's
that
companion
came out when
pieces.
I was like 2.
Yes, Jacob, we know that you're like 7 years old.
A baby.
So,
hey.
Well, I mean, you and Geo are about the same age, and then me and Des over here were the...
I'm 24 this year.
I'm a boomer.
So then me and you were the same
age.
You
have like 2.5 years on me, I think. Because wait, you turned 24 this year, but you haven't yet.
Yeah, on September the 11th.
That's right. Remember? You're a 9/11 kid.
I am.
Oh dear.
God.
Well, okay
cursed date.
Sorry, I should put the pre-9/11 kid.
In my first year of secondary school, which is the equivalent of 7th grade for you guys, the first year of secondary school, the girl who eventually became my best friend, who really didn't like me at the start, told me I wasn't allowed to be happy on my birthday because it was 9/11, just straight up. And mine was the first birthday of the year. I'd never met any of these people before. And this girl just turns around and goes, "You're not allowed to be happy today. It's 9/11. And I was like, this is my 12th birthday. And I was just there like...
Welcome to secondary school again.
What the fuck, yeah.
I'm going to bring down this entire
to be happy
podcast
again.
by
Jesus
what I say
Christ.
next. But you can't be happy on your birthday. I also can't be happy on my birthday because last year a high school was pew-pewed on my birthday, and it happened to be the one that I graduated from. So now every time my birthday comes around, it's like...
Does anyone else want to add
terrible.
to this? Does anyone want to one-up the birthday thing?
Can anyone else do worse than me? Can literally anyone else do worse than my birthday?
My brother, my
Chowder,
mother...
How sweet is your birthday?
My birthday
Can we find
is just like
natural disaster? Well,
always
when
the
was your
week
birthday?
before the
Google
Invitational. So I celebrate my birthday at the Invitational. And that's
Sorry, Chowder, there's a more important event going on at that time. No one gives a fuck about your birthday.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
I gave a shit about it, bro. It's cool. I liked you having that. It's fine.
I didn't.
It's cool.
Thanks.
We're good times.
I'm just here.
Yeah, Jacob just...
You know when Chowder enters the building there, because you just hear a massive booming sound as he starts walking through the doors, and he's like, "Hey!" And it's like, "Oh, okay, Chowder's here."
Jeez.
I just hear. I don't even need to figure out where he is. Like, just in the crowd, I can just see this massive beam of rainbow light just come from the rafters of whatever arena we're in, and point out his position immediately every time.
You know, I love this because I haven't met either of you because I didn't go to SI.
Hey.
Love that for me.
Oh, Gio, by the way, did you go to SI?
Gio, did you go to SI?
Oh, you really should have been there, man.
It was fantastic. I don't know.
Actually, no, this is the thing, because I spoke to Daye every day, and I was basically living vicariously through him, and you were like updating me on everything and just telling me everything, and that I was just sat at home like,
Yeah. Just crying, through that perfect eyeliner that doesn't run when she cries, like she told us earlier on.
Oh, Des,
true.
Des, your sister just informed me that her birthday falls on the day that Steve Irwin died.
In Australia, that's pretty bad.
No.
That's pretty
That might actually
bad.
one up
Jesus,
mine.
because that's aligning with her own nationality. It's like a big tragedy as well. Whereas at least Geo's is somewhere else around the world, so it's a bit not as close to home.
Here in the UK, if someone had the birthday on the 7th of July,
Yeah.
that would be the UK one.
Yeah.
God damn.
What's the significance for those of us that weren't born in the UK on the 7th of July?
7/7 here, we had these big bombings on the tube, underground in London.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was like
You
our
were
big
like
terrorist attack.
6 when it happened.
And
Jacob.
double-decker bus as well, wasn't it? As
Yeah.
well, back in
Yeah, there was a-
2000.
Yeah.
when
I was
it?
6
It
in
was
2005.
in, like,
That's when this
Edgware
happened?
Road area.
It was an early 2000s thing?
It was.
Yeah, it was mid-2000s.
I was in
yeah.
primary school.
Dang.
I was in primary school because I remember the day afterwards we had a presentation in our class in primary school where 2 of the girls in our class told their stories as to how they knew people who were involved in it. And like in hindsight, like what kind of a teacher goes, "All right, kids, anyone show and tell. If anyone has a story to tell about people who were nearly caught in this terrorist attack, you just stand at the front of the class and let us know." But no, that's what I remember the most.
And
of
that's
it.
early enough in your lifespan, you have no idea how much significance an event has. Like that event will have to you, right? It's like, well, this happened. I don't understand the full gravity of why it's a thing, but yet we're still going to have these people tell like their experiences.
I think I felt that more about 9/11 because I remember watching 9/11.
Yeah.
Whereas
I don't.
Like,
I would have been too.
it was my 5th birthday, and so yeah, I just remember it being on TV. And obviously, I was way too young to really fully like understand what it was. But like, I didn't. Like, I heard about 7/7 after it happened. I didn't, like, watch it on TV or anything like that. And nowhere near as many people got hurt in it, so this is cheery.
This is actually a really depressing start to when I was told.
Why don't
like,
we
you
move
wanna
away
come
from the
do you
potential
wanna
for any
come to a
like
podcast?
terroristic conversation? We can rein this in. I believe in us. This is something we can absolutely do. This is actually kind of cool because I don't know if I've, other than I think talking with Geo or maybe or just like anyone else over DMs at any point, the only time that I think I've really ever managed to talk to somebody about how Challenger League went in 2 different parts of the world was just over like talking to somebody in direct messages. So now we got 2 EU CL casters in the room at the same time that a washed up NA caster is also in the room. So we can probably run some comparison.
I'm not a washed up NA caster.
You're a washed up NA caster because you used to do For Honor. Do we have
did
to
For
bring this
Honor
back up
once for
every
like
single
7 hours.
podcast? Every single time we'll always talk about how you used to do For Honor at one point.
At one point.
The legendary first ever debut For Honor caster.
Oh, you know it.
I do.
You know it.
One and only.
All right.
Who was with you, by the way? I'm only a little bit curious about who was co-casting that.
I don't remember. I have no memory of like what happened. I just
Is that
remember
because you
being.
don't want to remember, or you just genuinely don't remember?
Genuinely, I was like, my brain was fried about an hour and a half into the thing, and I casted for
Ouch.
7 straight hours, like no breaks. And I
Ouch.
think I
That's
just
like
I died.
the OG days of
Did
casting.
you keep a bottle
God.
under the desk?
I went through 3 of these
That's not what I mean. I mean for peeing.
for Pete. No, I just
Pee into a monster can
how
is
did
brave
you pee?
enough, bro.
I muted
I would
myself and
not-
ran.
I would not be able to get through a 7-hour cut. I mean, I can barely get through 1 hour without having to run to the bathroom. So 7 hours would kill me.
Yeah,
Chump.
I slept for like a day after that. It was
Oh man.
awful. My throat got wrecked.
Did you at least get paid? Because I don't know what it's like to get paid to cast things.
What, you guys get paid?
What?
Well, you didn't get paid for
what's
that?
money?
Come on. You what?
I didn't get paid. Well, okay, so the issue was that both the relief casters just didn't show up,
Right.
Right, because
this
it was
sounds like a very
volunteer.
similar story, Geo.
right? So,
The Overwatch days.
well, I was supposed to cast for 3 hours, and then they would come in and cast for 3 hours, and then the other people would come in, and we would come back and cast the finals for like 3 hours. But we casted for like 7.5 hours because the relief casters just never showed up, and I wished for death. And that's why I
Excellent.
don't cast, because
Yeah,
There's a
I
really
reckon
similar
that-
story in Overwatch. Remember about Avril, in the OC region? They were having like an official tier. Bear in mind, this is tier 2, right? And in Overwatch, tier 2 has got generally in the studio. It's a bit more official than, I guess, how things in Siege are going. It's still developing on that side. And there's a guy called Avril who turned up to do a cast, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, your main co-caster isn't here today." and we also can't get your backup co-caster, so you're going to have to cast a whole day by yourself.
I
And
forgot
bearing
about
in
that.
mind, Overwatch is a game where you're basically shouting continuously every 20 seconds or so for the next 30 seconds while a fight plays out. At that point, the chat were just trying to cheer him on and say, you know what, forget about the games, just live, give the man water. What is going on? Why is no one helping him? But fair play to him, he did stick it out. He did stick it out and come all the way through to him, and I was like, man, mad respect for that. I couldn't do that.
I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure the longest or like most grueling broadcast I've ever done has almost undoubtedly been Overwatch, but I can't think of a specific. Like, I'm thinking it must have been like a Contenders China. We had so many technical issues when we did Contenders China because in the second season that I did, they changed the. It wasn't the TO, it was the production company, and the clean feeds that we got sent were like super fucked. And it would take like for what was meant to be maybe like a 5 or 6 hour broadcast, it would end up going on like the whole day, and I would have to be up at like 4 or 5 a.m. because of the time difference. And so I would just after those I would just crash, and like I'd maybe see my flatmate for like 5 seconds. If I went out to grab a drink or grab a snack, I'd be like hi, and then she just wouldn't see me for the rest of the day. And like that was pretty grueling.
I mean, that makes.
But that's only for like that was meant to last 6 to 7 hours. Like you knew that heading into it, and that's before any technical delays.
It was usually 3 games per day, and in Overwatch, a series lasts about 2 hours on average. So like that for a best of 3, a series will be about 2 hours. Yeah, that makes sense, right, Daye?
Yeah.
So,
I get paid like £100 to do a whole overnight broadcast of HR. It was back in the days of UK University esports.
Is that a train?
What is that?
Jacob,
I live across from a fire station.
Jacob, that is not a fire station. That was a goddamn long.
Noise.
I'm
That
not
was a
gonna lie,
long haul train.
That did kind of scare me a
What
bit too.
was that?
Even Jacob looked surprised. And he's
Well, I
lived
found
there, for
funny.
God's
I've
sake.
lived
What I
across
found
here for
funny
11 years, yeah.
Was that you were just going to keep talking and ignore it. And I was like, did I just hear that in my own head?
Yeah, I was trying to make sure that like no one
That
went
was
crazy.
one of those things that's
didn't
loud
know.
enough that I know I had to like mention something. Otherwise, it's just, there's just a random horn that shows up on the podcast and everyone's confused about where it came from.
Now, why is there an air horn? Is that the kind of sign to start talking about Siege, or no? Apparently
Oh
not.
man, should we talk about
I don't know.
No, that starts in an hour. It's not now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, in an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
More time. All
Right, that was a fast hour. We can talk about it now.
All right. I mean, that makes sense. All right. So let's talk about something that just recently wrapped up that one person here was involved with.
What?
EU Open Clash?
EU Open Clash.
Yeah.
We saw a lot of different teams come in. We saw some of the preview. What?
I never want to see a game of Border or Consulate again in my life.
That's a good point.
Oh,
I would
my
also
God,
steer
dude,
clear from that.
honestly, like, I get it. The Border's disappearing from the map pool, and there is no reason to be wanting to like show it. Well, show it now rather, because you're not going to show it again, and no one's going to be able to counter you on it, for example. But
Right.
fucking hell, now I see why everyone wants it out the map pool. I'm done with it. Honestly, it killed me.
Oh, come on. It was only literally every best of 3 had Border.
Yeah, literally only every single one. Honestly,
Yeah.
Consulate was in there a lot, which kind of came as a surprise. I thought you might see Club creep in, but I think because Consulate turns into more of a pew-pew kind of map,
Yeah.
and the strats can be relatively simple, people were just like, well, we haven't got to show too much there either. It can be Leon jumping out of a window every single time a round starts, so why not?
if
It leaves a lot of teams second guessing what they're going to play. Exactly, right? Yeah.
You guys
You know,
in EUCL only had one scenario where you had one map get casted twice for the same best of 2 quote-unquote series. We also had that in NA, but it was Border for both maps, and it was also played in the series before. So we had to cast Border 3 times in the same CL play day, and
God.
one of those games, they went to the Armory Locker bomb site was played 5 times in a row.
Nice.
Oh, okay. I was going to say 5 times total. I was going to say, what the fuck were they defending?
I would pay someone to punch me in the face if that happened. I hate Border as a map anyway, and I hate casting Border, so like I would just be like, right, I'm out. I quit.
I mean, I
quit this game.
don't mind Border. I think Border is a lot like old Oregon was, where it's just sort of everybody solved it.
I like it. I still actually enjoy the map because there's a lot of vertical play in it, and I think teams still don't. Clearly, a number of times we've seen it over the last year or so, some teams still don't know how to break open an office hold of a bathroom tellers, for example. But I think I agree with people saying it does get a bit stale, like you say. It is a bit samey now. You know you're going to see a castle when defending that site, for example. You know you're going to see certain setups. And I do like the fact we're getting to see some new fresh stuff on things like Theme Park. It does keep the game inspiring.
Yeah,
I'll make the case that I've been making this case for the past little while. Border is the most balanced comp map that Siege has, like bar none. If you get a map to a point where it becomes like the most ridiculously like stale thing, and everyone's like, players are complaining about it, viewers are like, oh, it's Border, casters are like, I hate casting this goddamn map. It's probably because it's been figured out to the point where you can quite literally call it the most balanced thing on the planet. It's not super attacker or defender sided. It can go 3-3 and everyone's like, yeah, okay, I guess this is pretty standard. Or you can have full-on domination, but that's because one team absolutely does not know what they're doing on Border. And, you know, for the rate that it's been in the game, if you don't know how to play that map, what are you doing? So I like playing on it more than I like casting it. And keep in mind, I've been casting for considerably less time than either one of you have combined. Yeah. So in my case, for me to say that I don't like casting, it means that you had better not like casting Border, because you set the precedent for me to not like it either.
I've never put that angle on it before, that I enjoy playing it more than I do watching, and I absolutely agree with you, because it's one of those ones that we've all seen and watched so much. When it does come around to playing it, even in ranks, like
it's
even
easy.
with
You
minimal
can turn your brain
coordination,
off.
you still know what you're going to do, right? And it needs to be in the game for that purpose.
I play
a very good point.
I play Thermite.
My mind has been blown. Thank you, Jacob.
You're very welcome.
as the hard breach,
I'm sorry.
As the hard breach on Border, like my job is like mathematically solved, right? I know the fucking pixel to put that breach charge on, to open that wall to the specific specifications, and the Ash knows like the fucking angle down to the millimeter to fire the charge to get the bandit off. Right?
Yeah.
And that's it. You're done. You don't need voice comms for Border at this point.
Exactly.
It's just
done.
clean.
It's the solo rank.
Yeah, there's.
It kind of is.
It actually is. That and Coastline are the two that I always look at and say, actually, for ranked purposes, where you buy yourself, those two are the best maps for it.
But I mean, casting Border is, how do you say, and he takes out the armory wall like 8 times in a row without it being fucking the most boring.
No,
thing on
absolutely
earth.
absolutely that.
You take the armor logger's bomb site, but there's a way that you take it. Like, you just figure the formula out, and you're like, well, here's what we think they'll probably do, or if they don't want to do this, they have this other secondary option, and that's like it. Like, you either take it from the office wall behind fountain, you take it from armory wall by getting CC and break room control first, and then it's like, okay, if you do one of those things, and based on how many people you lose at what time you're in the round, like, that's just how you that's how you cast Border. Like, that's just how you do it every time.
Like, this is the thing with casting maps, in my opinion, is the most fun ones to cast are not the ones that are like entirely chaotic, but they're always the ones where, okay, you've got like a solid idea of what the general default is, but you see some fluctuation around that, because then you can actually talk about why people are making differences about things. If it's a map where people typically like always play the same thing, that there's, as you say, there's only so many different ways that you can talk about something happening.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of nice where you can pick out the deviation from the norm and be like, oh, this is maybe why they're doing this, and there's some like flavor in it. And it just, when you get to the point where people aren't doing that because there's no reason to, then it's sort of like, well,
I feel like you could use Border as a tutorial for both casters and players. Like, you do it for the players to go through and take, you know, this one site the same way, because you have like 2 different avenues to do it on any part of the map, and then you give that play-by-play to the casters and go, okay, figure out what the formula is for this map, understand that this is what the normal is, and once they do something that's out of the ordinary for what a standard site take looks like, then that's where you capitalize on it. Like, it's that kind of simplicity that you don't get from you do not get that from a map like Villa. You absolutely can't, just because of the inherent nature and the complexity of how it varies from, you know, floor to floor, from site to site. Like, it's also a much bigger map, so if you try doing it with, I don't know, I guess you could do that with Consulate. Oh yeah, you said you hated Consulate too, other than Border. Just sheer amount of times played, was it also about the same brain as Border?
I enjoy Consulate for different reasons. I think it's very unique in the map shape that it is, obviously, as we know, quite long and thin. So it does mean that you tend to get one directional play. It's going left or it's going right. There's no north-south really involved in this. You're either playing from the left or you're playing on the right-hand side.
Right.
And that in itself makes it quite interesting. You know what you're getting. You're seeing 4 people spawn off towards admin side. You know it's going to be an admin take. You see it spawning towards garage. It's a garage take. And I think, like, it's the next level to Border. It brings more viability because there's 3 floors. You get more stuff you can do on there. There's more sites to play on, but it is kind of a level 2 for learning Siege, I think, and that's something we haven't really talked about yet. Is I think the complexity in learning to cast and watch Siege. You know, I've been in it now for 18 months, and me and Geo sat there so many times like, what the fuck is this game sometimes? Because there is so much to learn. Like, genuinely, it is the most complex. I've cast quite a few games now. It is the most complex game I've ever casted. I mean, there's so much to it.
This is kind of the interesting thing, is because obviously Daye and I both came from the same game, but Daye switched games about a year before I did. And so, you know, and he always knew that I had an interest in Siege anyway. So we've, over that course of that year before I switched games, we would discuss it and talk about it. And obviously you were in kind of your high octane level of learning at a different point to when I was. And so I was kind of, we'd discuss things and I was a lot further behind, and then when I got to that point where I was like, okay, I've got to like grind and learn a load of stuff, and you'd already been through that, and we had similar conversations at each time about like the things that you do have to learn, and whether I remember when I think I actually put this on my Instagram story today, but because I was looking through some of my old like notes when I first started trying to make analysis notes, and I remember when I first started doing it thinking, I don't know how I can't envision getting beyond grasping the basics. And it was like that. It was like I have to understand like so much stuff as a fundamental before I can even talk about stuff at the level that I'm used to talking about Overwatch, because you know, we were both color casters, so we were coming in as analysts essentially, and I remember being like, am I just like running into a brick wall? Like, is this, you know, am I actually going to be able to understand it? I had put in a lot of hours, and I'm sure Daye will like agree with that as well, because the difference is also is like when I first started casting Overwatch, I had hundreds of hours in that game already. I did not with Siege. I had like 20 hours in Siege before I started casting Siege. So yeah.
No, yeah.
So you feel like you learn a lot about this game, then you speak to Kickstar, and you feel like you need to go back and play the tutorial all over again. That guy knows far too much about this game.
Never spoken
honestly.
to him in my life.
Oh my god. Yeah. I talk with sometimes I'll play games with Intero, and just listening to being like, well, most of the time when we play, I'm at least very inebriated. So it's yes. But you know, playing games with pro players is just like nuts. Like I don't know, there's this Disclosure, he plays for the esports team that I'm affiliated with, Nico on Sin, down in Australia. If you follow any Twitter account for Siege, I'd recommend you follow him, because that man gets angles banned faster than you can breathe. Because there's literally,
looking up his Twitter account right now. Don't mind me. Continue.
Me too. Come on, give me the tag.
At Nico, NIKOH R6, I think. Okay. Basically,
Nico, whoa, there it is.
Yeah. He's the only man I've ever seen kill someone. Okay, you know Aquabar, right?
On Coastline, yeah.
On Coastline, right? You know how there's the spot where you can sit behind Aquabar?
Right.
You know how there's a vent that you can put a drone in?
Or chuck a nade down.
He shot a man through that.
Generally that.
He shot a man through that.
Through the vent?
Through the vent.
In a comp match?
Yes. Well, not in a comp match, but in a ranked game, yeah.
Oh, okay. Not so bad then.
All right.
I
was about to say if that was on broadcast.
On broadcast, he's done things like gotten on the railings on bank to shoot over at one of the spawns, like on the railing on fucking Banana. On the railing with a dock angle leaning out so he can shoot through one of those big windows. Right?
What?
There's one where he shoots out someone's air jab out of midair. Like, what is that?
Jeez.
Like,
why did G2 pass on him and pick up Virtue? What the heck?
Right? It's important to remember that Nico is also one of the guys who, if you saw that ANZ clip, where the doc jumps out of CCTV to skim.
Clubhouse. I've seen this one. Yeah.
The doc jumps out of the hole in the wall in CCTV to stim the mute who's down, who's dragged himself out of garage so they can get back up and retake the site.
And they end up winning that round too.
They
it was
won that round.
7-7 match overtime.
Wait,
yeah.
You on about Derpe there? Sorry.
Yeah.
Derpe. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Nico,
I was still
Nico was the guy
half
that
zoning
dirt-based
out
him.
what the fuck's going on here. Right, I see. Yeah, that was big brain.
He's over here just browsing his Twitter account, looking through all the clips now,
just
going,
looking
"Oh
at
my
all
god,
the
this guy's
bullshit
awesome.
that Nico
This guy's so
I am,
good."
you joke.
Right?
But I am.
I'll probably go through and binge it later too. Don't worry.
So
That's good.
Like there's so many issues that Siege has of just sort of players saying, "Are we approaching the skill ceiling?" And then I see people like Nico just fucking shoot air jabs out of the air, and you're just like, at a certain point, like. Does Siege have a skill ceiling?
That's what happens when you stop putting energy into
that
complaining and start putting all your energy into just being better at the game, even though it sucks, right?
A game that has been out for half a decade has not reached its skill ceiling. I'm sorry,
No.
especially not one that's not only is Siege tactical game, of course, but being a first-person shooter means that inherently in the nature of the game, the similar kind of mechanical skill that you require to be the absolute very best, without completely untouchable, will be, you look at games like CSGO, which has been around for like 20 or so years, and even CSGO hasn't reached its skill ceiling. Do you think that Siege has? I just think it would be such a naive thing to say, that Siege has reached its skill ceiling when there is constantly new things being developed, new ideas, new strategies. We're constantly seeing, an evolution in the level of mechanical skill as well. You think that 5 years after the beginning of the game, it's reached its skill ceiling and we're still seeing new stuff? Like, it's a ridiculous assertion.
I mean, I remember...
I'd call it apart slightly. I'm going to disagree with you here, and it's not very often I get to do this. I think in some games, Overwatch is kind of one that I think I'd lean towards. We've seen air quotes a skill ceiling. We haven't necessarily seen a micro or a strategy ceiling. There's always new things that are going to get uncovered. But in terms of what players can do, we've seen with the kind of players make on like Widowmaker in that game of Sniper, if you haven't played Overwatch before. The chain headshots that they hit, that's skill ceiling on that hero, no matter which way you look at it, I think. And those things will be reached. It's the coordination, and with things like Siege, because there's so much to come into the game still, as maps change all the time, as new operators get introduced in the game always changes. Sure, there's room for change all the time, but I think in some games you can see them come out for even less than 5 years, and you still kind of see that ceiling being hit.
I think it really depends on what the kind of game is and the depth of it.
The complexity of the game, yeah.
So for example, like, disclaimer, I'm not a Battle Royale player, but I would argue that PUBG, you're probably not going to find anything that's particularly a big example of growth now. Since the beginning of the game, I suspect that it's probably reached its peak. That I'm coming as someone who has casted PUBG before, but is not really... I've never played PUBG, and I've never been involved with PUBG, really, beyond... being paid to cast it sometimes.
Right. God, tell me what that's like.
But I think with something like... the interesting thing is, like... This is going to make some people mad. The reason why I was even drawn to Siege in the first place is because of the things that it has similar to Overwatch, i.e. the fact that you have different characters that come out with set loadouts, and not only is it a game of can you shoot, but it's a game of can you use your utility in conjunction with your teammates in a way that gives you the advantage. And I think, following... Overwatch is a little bit younger than Siege, but following the way that it has gone there... Actually, it brings me to a comment that you made in your cast, Daye, in the G2 versus Rogue game on the Open Clash. You said, we're at a point now where you can't afford to not have good gunners in the game. 5 gunners on your team, yeah. Whereas with Overwatch, it started off being you have to have amazing fraggers, and as time's gone on, it's gone to, it doesn't matter if you have amazing fraggers, you have to have people who are really good at, really flexible and really good at using utility. But I think the point still stands that either way, you're constantly requiring more from the level of skill and the level of ability to use a multitude of skills in quick succession in conjunction with different skills, more so than you were at the beginning of either of those two games. And so while, like, I agree, sure, someone who can click heads really, really quickly or whatever, there's only so far that you can go with that. I think that we will continue to see better and better players from that perspective. So I do doubt that we are at the very top with regards to things like that. But I still think that the skill ceiling does consider those other parts of the skill. I don't think it's just solely about people who can shoot. So I kind of agree with you, but also disagree. But it's because I wrap the skill ceiling up with like all of those things, whereas you're separating them out into separate.
Yeah, but in that case, you'd
criteria.
argue in anything in football, which is as old as fucking God, the human race at this point. It feels like
Football
there's arguably never
being
going to
real
be.
football.
There's arguably going to be a skill ceiling that is never hit.
Considering we're talking to two English people, I was already going to call it real football,
right.
but break out the Patriots hat. There's the Broncos pennant.
Pick any skill. Pick it. Here he goes.
Where is it?
Pick anything that you like. It doesn't
They're
have to be a
so
sport,
insecure.
any kind of
Allow me
game.
to
It's
bring
always
it
going to
back.
change because
the best
yes,
of
he's
all
very, very.
freaking time.
Okay. Okay, there's an American in the room in case you guys didn't know.
Did you know that we're American? Did you know that we're
Have you
American?
figured it out yet, guys?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, imagine,
Now's
right?
not time
Imagine.
to be parading that you're American and being proud of that fact.
That's fair. That's
My
very
point
fair.
is more than
That's
anything
actually-
else,
no, that's very true.
especially in video games, you're never going to see a true ceiling get hit because the game has to evolve. Otherwise, it gets we already know what it looked like when we had a goats meta in Overwatch for 6 months. Everyone's like, God, this is
Hey,
fucking
I love
boring.
Goats Meta. I will
Like,
stand up for Goats
so
Meta
did
forever.
I wrote guides about it. I did video analysis on it. I loved it, but I can completely agree with people who said it's getting stale and we aren't seeing any growth anymore. It's why esports will always keep on having a never-ending ceiling, a glass ceiling, if you want to call it that, because games have to evolve to stay fresh and entertaining.
Yeah.
After this weekend, seeing 2 days worth of Border, I think it's pretty fair to say it's got to keep on changing, or we will get fucking
It's really
bored
fresh on
and
your
be
mind.
done
You're
with
like,
this.
God, please just do something different to change the way this
No,
works.
I remember,
I'm just hating it. Just get me out.
I remember. I
Killed me.
forget when it was. I think it was sometime in 2018. It was an NA Pro League game, and it was either 2018 or 2019, and it was the first time that I ever saw anyone impact trick.
Yeah. Like,
Exactly,
we had to teach ourselves how to do that. Like,
Right?
bandit tricking had to come at some point. Impact tricking was a thing.
I mean, like even today, people don't know if you impact nade at a certain point in the wall. Like you see all the pros kind of debating it. I did a video about it about 6 months ago, looking at where you place a thermite charge, whether or not it will get destroyed by an impact trick.
Yeah.
And people are still arguing that if you nest a exothermic charge inside the wall, it's less likely to get destroyed. We tested it for like 2 hours. It doesn't affect it at all, but people still, between teams, debate whether or not that's true or false.
No,
There's still so much learning to do in the game, and people just aren't being absolute scientists about it yet. That's going to come. I got no doubt.
It's insane. It's stuff like, you know, the game designers went on record as saying, you know, someone said, "Oh, what do you think about bandit tricking?" And they said we had fucking no idea that was a thing. When we were testing it, nobody found it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I love it when people figure shit out
Right?
like that, and it
It's,
becomes a part of the general accepted
it
strategy.
becomes an active counter rather than everything that you have from an operator perspective just being something that you like put on a wall and like leave it, and then someone comes along with a Thatcher EMP and then destroys that thing. Then Thermite comes in.
Yeah.
It's like
It just adds
it's an
dimension.
active thing that you can do to like that becomes its own part of the storyline of just the individual round. Like from a casting point of view, it's if he's able to get the exothermic charge off the wall, then okay, now we're at a moment of tension right here. Does he go for it the second time, or do they get off of garage wall and go for something different? If he does get it the second time, then they have to go back around, and then that will change the entire complexity of the round, because you have something like that wasn't introduced when the game was a thing.
Nice.
And fuck off.
what did I do?
What did he do?
Disgusting. Did
just
you not
burps.
hear?
Did you not hear
He
it,
just
Jacob?
burped so loud.
Okay, first of all, you can check the recording.
That was not
not
loud.
me burping. That was Jacob hitting his mic.
Wait, you were burping at the same time?
No, you just hit your mic, Jacob.
No,
I
he
did.
definitely sounded like he was burping.
Wait, really?
He sounded like a really low, like frog burp. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no,
it
it
was
sounded exactly
absolutely-
like that, right?
No, it was longer and
You can
slower
burp on
and
command.
quieter.
Like that.
Yeah, like that,
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, exactly. See, guilty as charged.
It was disgusting,
What the fuck?
Jacob. Try not to sound like that.
Honestly, this isn't the first time that on the podcast Chowder has interrupted some point that I've been making that I've actually like been confident in talking about with something
talking
just
about-
utterly ludicrous.
You interfered with yourself, my friend.
That is all this podcast is, right? It's all of us trying
It's
to form
because
opinions
Chowder's here
live
for
as we go
comic
along and
relief.
trying to make them
He
work.
gets
Wow, thanks.
jealous.
and finding one point we finally feel confident on.
Oh, he's been relegated. He's been relegated to podcast Joker and has nothing positive to contribute to discussions.
Yeah, but
Poor
Jacob,
guy.
that means for the first time in your life, you're not the comic relief. So is that why you chose to do the podcast with Chowder, because it made you look good?
Honestly, Chowder was the one who came to me with the idea for the podcast, so I just took it as an opportunity to feel better about myself constantly for 2 hours every week. So thank you for this, Matt.
Thank you, Gio. But
You're so welcome.
Continue with your point, Jacob.
I mean, the just that whole aspect of there being something in the game that the developers are cool with being in there. Mm-hmm. Like, imagine what the whole complexity of the game would have been like. I mean, from either a caster point of view or from a player point of view, if there wasn't something else to do to like actively engage people within a certain part of however a round shapes out. And at least from my perspective, if everything was as simple as putting your gadgetry up on a defense, and then when you're coming in on the attack and doing quite literally nothing but just figuring out where the gadgetry is, like nullifying it, going into a site and winning, like it gets super, super boring because it doesn't turn into, a game where you're finding the people. It turns into a game where you're finding the utility. And we can get back into the discussion of, the whole defense utility heavy meta at some point if we really want to, though I kind of think it's been beaten to death and some changes are coming with the patch next week that might help to nullify it a bit. So we don't have to get back into it, but the point still remains, if it was just if all of Siege was able to be boiled down to a formula as similar as that's the word I want, then we'd be back at a point where it becomes as simple to understand and to play, and maybe even as boring to watch in some cases as a CS:GO can get.
I think CS:GO
sometimes
CS:GO at like any level except the highest level is a lot of like Rudy McTooty, peek the angle and shooty, right? Mm-hmm. But
yeah,
when you get up to higher and higher and higher levels, right? I'm not even talking about like anything you would find in a ranked match. I'm not even talking about anything you would find in an ESEA match. I'm talking about stuff like when you get up to a Na'Vi versus Astralis level, that's where you start to see the crazy shit come out, right? Mm-hmm. The greatest moment for me, one of the greatest moment in all of esports, is Simple throwing an op over a wall. Right? So for those of you who don't know,
I know this clip.
The tactical play.
In Counter-Strike, you can throw your gun, right? It doesn't do any damage. It's basically the same as just getting rid of it. It's like...
You're dropping it.
Yeah, you picked up an op last round, you throw it at your friend who needs the op, and you buy an M4, right?
But it has velocity. As long as you're just dropping it at your feet, you can direct it towards somebody or someplace, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. So you can throw these things, right? And it gives you more velocity when you're moving. So a common tactic will be, and this happens at like the really high level when you know you can win this gunfight, is you'll take your P250 and you'll throw it at someone, right? Because to them, small dark object being hurled at their face, that's a flashbang. So they flip and they don't expect you to immediately peek because it's a flashbang, and you just walk over and shoot them, right? And then you go over and pick up your pistol. And that happens like this much, right? It happens none of the time. But basically what this guy did, what Simple did, is what I think is just what Siege is sort of all about. It's
pretty ingenious.
Yeah, he teched the hell out of it, right? So he takes an op. This is the literal largest model gun in the game. And he jumps up on the box. The enemy can't see him. The enemy's defusing the bomb, right? And he throws his op. He takes his main weapon and he just hucks it at the guy. And the guy doesn't know what to do because he sees something running. He thinks it's a flashbang and he turns around, and Simple just jumps over with his pistol and guns him down.
Did it have to be as convoluted as that? Absolutely not. Was it 10 times more entertaining and so much more badass to see it happen that way? 100%.
Simple's like the best player in the game.
Simple's the best. Simple's the best person. Yeah, no, he's the best.
You literally can't argue that fact.
Yeah.
Like, I don't watch CS:GO, but like I know that at the very least. I have a T-shirt with Simple's name on it because I went to the Omen Challenge, which was like a private event that I think FaceIt put on
I think so.
London, and it was sort of like show matchy, and like they had the best players there. And I went and got a load of free alcohol, and it was great. But they came out with all these like limited edition T-shirts that had various names of the players on, and I went pick one up, and I got one with Simple's name. I was like, oh cool, all right, that's going in my wardrobe. And then they had to hold people back because everyone was trying to rush to get Simple's T-shirt out of all of them, and I was sat there and I was like,
yeah. I mean,
I've come away with the prize.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, literally, I was like, they're sipping on my gin, like.
I mean, people talk about, who's the best player in Siege, and to me, the question isn't who's the best player in Siege. The question is who will be Siege's Simple, right? Who will be Siege's Arslan Ash?
Who's the legacy? Who's like in the Hall of Fame?
Who is going to be the undisputed, not the best team, but who is going to be the undisputed single best player? Right? And I don't know
if... No one can be, in my opinion.
Sure, and there's an argument to make for that.
It's hard when there are, like, the way that roles work in Siege, it's very hard to, like, to name something like that.
These days, roles are kind of a lot more flexy, right? That's why I'm saying about the whole 5 gunners thing is, like, the number of coaches I've tried to speak to in, like, the last couple of months and say what roles everyone play, and they're saying, well, we don't really have fixed roles anymore. Like, we've got 5 flex because everyone's trying to play this game now where you can change between rounds, and BDS are probably a really good example. Jacob, calm down. Thinking about players like Shiko, playing hard breach on entry frag, like, who the fuck does that? No. But those guys managed to make it work. So it's just transforming the way the game works. But the problem is, Siege is a game that you don't win down to gun skill. It comes down to team communication to the nth degree, information being passed, utility sharing. Like, I don't think there's any way that a single player you can look at them and go, they are literally carrying this. In Overwatch, you've got Widowmaker players. Inside of League of Legends, you've got players like Faker who just rock the house on Assassins. Like CSGO, you've got a player that can go 1 versus 5 because the intel isn't really as big a deal in that game as it is here. I think there's just too many layers to Siege to really be able to cleanly say this is the go-to best player and no one is ever going to peak that. It's impossible.
Well, that's what I mean by roles. It's like, yeah, what you say is like it's becoming more flexible and a little bit more like blurred lines, which I totally agree with. My point is more that in any one round, different people are going to be doing different jobs, and those jobs are very hard to compare and say which job is the most important out of these 5 that each of the players are doing, because it's sort of like, well, Siege is fairly impossible to succeed in without any of them. Whereas, as you say, you have that more carry potential in other games. I mean, yeah, in Overwatch it changed, and that's what a lot of people didn't like in the GOATS era, was it became that point where you relied evenly on all 6 players. But back in, like the dive meta, yeah, it was like, okay, your hit scan DPS player, that's the one to look at. And to be fair, the last MVP of Overwatch, no longer in Overwatch, now he's moved to Valorant, but he was a Widowmaker player.
Yeah, Sinatra.
Yikes. MVP of last year, by the way, gets to play all of Overwatch League as the best player and then leaves for Valorant. I should probably tell you what a timeline.
Overwatch it's like a Canadian just left for Valorant. It's crazy. Yeah.
Also, one thing that I would like to point out is that no one in chat has suggested anyone from NA as the simple of
just saying.
Simple of
to be fair, how can you be the simple of Siege if simple also isn't North American?
That's just
true.
Yeah.
I mean, even looking at chat, that's a great reference, right? Like, everyone's got different arguments for, like, Shiko, sure, he's a fantastic gunner. Is he strictly going to be the best, like, overall legacy player? No, you're probably looking at Pengu for that, or Fabian or something like that. So there's a few names already in the mix there that no one can definitively say that player is the player that everyone will look at as undisputedly the best player of all time. It's difficult.
There will be an opinion that comes from people like us who obviously will want to dive a little bit more into the different ways in which you can play Siege in general, but then to a casual viewer and maybe even to a casual like FPS or perhaps even casual esports viewer kind of as a whole, if you don't have enough kills to top the scoreboard, then you aren't worthy of, a much higher distinction. And I think that came time for CigeGG when they announced who their best player of year 4 was, and it ended up being Shiko. Everyone points to him and goes, well, okay, he has maybe one thing he does exquisitely well, but everything else, or there were so many other arguments being made for people who could probably like top him. Like they had a full top 10 list of players, and they also had like an honorable mentions list that came out with, I think, like another like 9 or 10 people before they announced who number 1 was. And my friends and I are talking about it, trying to figure out who like their number 1's going to be, and we had this really long talk about Shepard from Team Empire, probably one of the best. Honestly, one of the best
player in all of Siege.
Support players, one of the best players in Siege. Period. Doesn't make the top 10 list, hits the honorable mentions list, and then we see Shiko come out, and we're like, "Excuse me."
I think one of the issues is that Siege, the way that Siege metrics are calculated are weird. Because
in general they have to be.
Most games, right? It's nobody gives a shit who opens the wall. Everyone gives a shit about who goes through that wall first.
Yeah.
Right? And that's sort of a very weird way to think about it, right? Because you have basically 4 people supporting one person, and only that one person is getting the credit, right? For example, when Sir Boss was subbing in on G2.
There you go.
Right? When Sir Boss
Bro,
was
we were there.
Yeah. No, when Sir Boss was subbing in for G2, basically what happened was G2 got the most plants out of everyone in European or in Europe, right?
He did. I think he might have gotten the most plants of anybody at the tournament, like, period. Like, that was his role. He was stuck
plants
on
per
plant.
round. Sir Boss planted. It didn't matter if he was in a 1v4. He fucking planted.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in one of the interviews from Pro League, the first half of Pro League season 11, when that happened, and it was with Pengu, I think. He said, like, when we were trying to decide who it was we were going to bring in, we were like, this is the role that we need, so we're going to bring in a specialist to that role, and we've all kind of screwed ourselves around and like rearranged ourselves to be based around the fact that he is going to be doing that.
Yeah. No, it's there's a lot of talk about Siege, about, you know, and you look at that Siege GG list, and I think 9 out of the 10 people were Zofia Ashe on attack and then Jaeger on defense.
I can search to confirm this, but keep going and then I'll let you know.
Right? There were almost no support players on that list because
it's not a trackable stat.
The metric that they're calculating, cost, doesn't cover things like drone-assisted kills. It doesn't cover things like opening walls. Does it cover plants? Yes, but plants isn't specifically something that the support player does, right? When I play support, I fully expect to fucking die.
You have to who did the most plants at SI?
I thought it was Sir Boss, but Sir Boss also didn't
No,
make
it's Kamikaze.
stage.
Yeah, it was Kamikaze.
Kamikaze got 22.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Kamikaze planted like fucking hell.
The other thing is, like, you can't, and this is not something that's ever going to be fixed or changed really, but you have no way of measuring the communication that's happening in a team. And so, like, that's something that obviously support players are really heavily relied upon for. And you can't be like, oh, this Valkyrie player gave the most lines of communication across this season, or I don't know, whatever bullshit. But still, that's such a major part of the job, and it adds such credit to their successes, and the fact that their entire job is essentially to enable those other people in the team who then go and get the kills. They get the numerical credit for it, and of course are praised for that. Which, like, great, yeah, they can shoot guns, and I don't think anybody's trying to discredit that fact. But yeah, the point is, like, communication is not something that can be adequately measured, because not only do you not have insight fully into what the communication looks like, but there's no way of, like, no quantitative way of measuring that anyway, even if you were to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when we talk about, things like communication, there's something that sticks with me. I was solo queuing a ranked game, and it was on Bank, and I was trying to get the wall from server to, what's that fucking room called?
Site.
To what?
CCTV. It's
Site. Site.
Yeah.
I don't know what that room is because I play support, so I die before I enter it. But
Thermite wall, right?
What?
Thermite wall.
Oh, yeah. So I open the thermite wall, and I turn my ass around, and I start planting, and the first words out of my mouth were, I'm going to be C4'd. I need someone to plant this for me. And sure enough, I get 4 seconds into that plant, clap, dead. Someone comes around, plants it, we win the round. Right? So
it's not a trackable stat. It's not something where you can go through and relay that info. It's like, in the same way that for other esports, it's also, okay, this... we're playing, what the hell is the map called? We're playing Mirage on CSGO. Someone's going to come from Marketplace side. Bomb can't get planted fast enough, but he's still going to come through Market. You can have one person sitting above him in apartments, but you need to relay the information that there's the one guy coming from Market that will stop the plant. And that little moment, that little nugget of information, as pivotal as it is, as important as it will be to figuring out if you can win or lose the round in like the next 2 to 3 seconds, no one's ever going to be able to like capture that and say, okay, he got this off. Kudos to him. The reason he made that call was the reason they won or lost the round, like, period. Like, we'll never have that info. It's just kind of one of those ambiguous things that we kind of have to assume either comes out or doesn't. And oftentimes we can pin it on the player that isn't able to clutch the round out as, oh, he didn't have the intel. But what that sentence basically means is he didn't have the intel. It can be spun in 2 different ways by 2 different people. It's either he didn't have the intel, it is his fault that he wasn't able to capitalize on this, or he didn't have the intel, his team couldn't relay it because either they didn't know or they just didn't relay it in time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Siege is such a tough game to watch, to learn, to understand. I still stand by it as the most complicated esport I've ever cast or watched, or
I'm sure, yeah,
ever struggled to ever try and get friends into. The number of times I'll start playing this game, like I've had probably 5 or 6 of the casters who just wanted to give it a go to play it. And I've said to them after a few days, you want to come and play some Siege? And they're like, yeah, to be honest with you, I think I'll play a game where I don't get killed for no reason. And it's the fact that it is so confusing in their minds to just play the game. Imagine trying to watch it at a pro level with all the other extras that go in there. We can all watch it as fans and appreciate it for all the mini games that go on, the bandit tricks, the impact tricks. Look at Border and Consulate, ironically, as great examples. Wars over yellow stairs or over suicide with my metal pancakes, the ADS is in there, grenades being thrown in from above. There are so many mini games that unless you play the game to a decent level and have seen that before, you just can't appreciate it. I genuinely feel for anyone who has never played the game or watched it before, trying to watch a pro level game, they will have no fucking clue what's going on. Siege has the horrible thing where it should be easy to understand because it's an FPS, but the difficulty and complexity inside rounds that it carries the same complexity as a MOBA. If you guys have never played Dota 2 or League of Legends and you try and watch a game of that, you are going to have no fucking clue what's going on.
I am absolutely lost every
characters. Exactly, 150 plus characters, all with about 5 different abilities, and God knows how many items inside the game. There are so many things going on, you have no hope of knowing what's going on. And Siege, sadly, carries that same complexity. It's fun to play because it's an FPS, but it is so difficult to understand.
I always say that I think one of the big things with Siege is it's an incredibly inaccessible game, but part of that is just due to the nature of the game. There are always a lot of conversations about, how can we make Siege more accessible and blah, 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 blah. And part of it comes down to, well, there's a limit to how much you can because the nature of the game just is not accessible. Like, Siege is always going to be a game that the people who end up in a part of it where they understand what's going on and they enjoy watching it are the people who've decided that they are going to go over almost the activation energy of getting through the hump where they're willing to learn that stuff. And sometimes you just aren't. Sometimes people just want to play a game that they can get into and kind of have that natural progression to getting good, if that's, what ends up happening. And, some people that never happens for. But with Siege, it's like, if you're going to get to that point, you have to be willing to put in the graft, and people just sometimes don't want to do that, especially people who very specifically look for a new game to watch as an esport. And people are like, well, I don't want to have to sit there like calculating everything in my head while I'm just watching it. I just want to enjoy it.
I'd love to know how that sits differently to League of Legends, though, because League has managed to get to 100 million active players, for example, over 10 years, of course, a bit of a longer time span, but they had a much larger kind of share of the market early on since they were one of the only games of its kind out. But League has a very... Okay, when I say the word very, I need to be careful in saying this because currently it's a bit ravaged by Smurfs. I'm one of them, go figure. The new player experience, I think, is a lot friendlier. No problem at all. The new game experience in League is a lot friendlier than it is in Siege, I think. In Siege, you can get into a game and you're being shot around corners you don't even yet know exist, and all you feel is pure frustration. At least in League, you get more oversight that someone's about to come and kill you. Like, you can generally tell, God, that guy's got 20 kills, he's really fed, he's going to roll me over. It's kind of telegraphed, it's coming. So in Siege, you're not always going to get that impression. It's horrible.
So there was this MMO that I used to play called Warframe.
I know Warframe.
Yeah, I used to love Warframe.
The game that I was told would suck me dry, and I stopped playing it in 2 hours, and everyone went, good. Congratulations, you survived.
I have about 2.8 thousand hours in Warframe. I think I have more hours in Warframe than I do in Siege. Right? And one of the conversations that always is had in the Warframe community is the onboarding experience fucking sucks.
It sucks. Yeah.
Right? It's garbage. It takes, at a minimum, like 2 days because you have to wait in-game time for things to happen. And it's fucking crap. The tutorial's crap. Right? But the developers came out and said, yeah, no, we tested out and focus tested a whole bunch of different tutorials. And the feedback we got was pretty much on every metric, every reworked tutorial we did, up to and including just taking out a tutorial and dropping you in, had the same amount of buy-in as the crap tutorial. Right? So it's this interesting perspective of, do you even need a new player onboarding experience, right? I think you do, personally, but...
Yeah. I mean, if only for having the illusion that the game will hold your hand for a certain amount of time before launching you into the larger experience and saying, okay, we think you know enough, now go and have fun like we want you to have fun, right?
Yeah. But sure, but you look at something like Siege, right? And you look at something like the Siege tutorial. In the Siege tutorial, there are things in the game that don't fucking exist.
Mm-hmm.
Thermite has frag grenades in the tutorial. That's how old that thing is. Right?
For those that play League of Legends, if they ever remember the old tutorial, Ashe, who's a ranged marksman, is told to build one of the bulkiest armor items in the game. You will never, ever, ever build that item on in a normal game, and if you do, you'll be reported for trolling.
Right?
That was outdated, and they replaced it.
It's absolutely...
It's damn serious.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No, we like... The Siege onboarding system is garbage from a single-player experience, but from a multiplayer experience, the Siege onboarding system is... This is a map playlist that you can only play when you're new. Figure it out. And I think that's the smartest way to onboard players, right?
I agree.
You can have all these tutorials on all of these different systems, but when push comes to shove, just fucking send them out and have them shoot someone.
This is going to sound really almost antithetical to what I said earlier, but I think that with the increasing popularity of esports, a lot of people get into a game and they want to understand it from the get-go and want to have a really solid understanding. And at the end of the day, you can't have a tutorial that's like, okay, these are the walls that you should be reinforcing, because it's like, A, all right, first of all, like, meta's changed, but B, it's not the game's job to tell you stuff like that, because that's not a rule in the game. There isn't a rule that you have to reinforce this wall. That's just something people have figured out. And so it's, as with any game, and as it always has been, it's sort of your job to learn by doing. That's what we all did. That's what everyone had to do. The point is, I think Siege, I mean, it's not really relevant to the onboarding thing, but Siege definitely needs its own practice range. That's not T-Hunt. But the fact that there is the casual playlist, great. There's unranked, whatever. I think that's really cool, because it also means you're not going to have complete shit. Well, you do get complete shitters going to ranked, but I mean, having complete newbies who they're most likely going to be starting off in casual. I think there should be some options to kind of in the same way that in Call of Duty you can set filters where you can play just the Call of Duty League maps and Call of Duty League rules. I think that you should have the same option to do something like that. If I want to go play casual, which I don't, but if I wanted to go play casual, I don't want to fucking play on some map that is of no reason.
Don't put me on
to
fucking Favela.
Anyway.
Don't put me on Favela.
Yeah, I don't fucking need to
if
know
I play
that map.
Tower again, I'm retiring.
Exactly. Right, it's just kind of like I just don't need to know it. And it's like even in unranked and ranked, it's like I don't fucking need to know how to play Chalet. And I don't think anyone enjoys playing Chalet.
Nobody likes Chalet.
Whoa.
No.
Right. I love Chalet.
Barry, don't you fucking sit here and defend it. Fuck you. Fuck you. Get off my fucking podcast.
Unacceptable.
It's literally, it's
Later,
like
bitches.
People have to learn games by playing them. That's the way it's always been. And the same thing goes for Siege. There just needs to be the environment where people have the opportunity to be shit for a bit before they get thrown into the lion's den. And that's the thing, right? Is it's like, you need to go in and fucking, I don't know. I remember when I first played Siege, this is going to be so embarrassing, I used to reinforce both sides of the wall because I thought that's what you had to do. When I first ever played Siege, right? And it's like, you just gotta do shit, complete, utter, like, zero IQ shit before you learn for yourself what you're actually meant to do. And that's just how it should be. The game is not and should not have to hold your hand. And a tutorial is never going to be adequate because there's always going to be things that aren't in it that people will complain that aren't in it. There's always going to be things that become, antiquated before the fucking thing's been released. And you're going to need a patch every other week to fix it. And things like that. And it's like the fact is it's an ever-evolving competitive game, and you can't be taught by the game how to do that because it's always changing. And so it doesn't like a tutorial, I think, from that respect, won't work. I mean, a tutorial in the same way that you have in, like, I don't know, Apex Legends, where it's like, here is a box, here is, like, how you pick up a weapon, here is what you shoot, like, blah, 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 with the utter basics. Yeah, like, sure, throw that in. But, like, so it's like, oh, you pick this operator, this is what an exothermic charge does, like, great. So you don't have to go look it up on some website. But in terms of actually strategy, you can't be taught that by the game.
I think I think there's
by the game. I agree.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for should the game teach you, and I'm going to use a term from fighting games here. Should games teach you tech? Right.
No,
tech
I don't
is.
think it should, but
I like the term. Yeah.
So for those who don't know, I'm just going to define this. Tech is a mechanic in the game which the developers did not intend to occur, but do not consider a bug.
So like tricking.
Bandit tricking, impact tricking, Kaid tricking.
No, the game should not teach you that.
Zofia Maverick tricking, Zofia taking diffusers off the bomb with a Gurjmat thing, right? All of that is tech. And I think it's important for a game to teach you the very basics and then let you figure out tech.
Yes.
Right? Because
it's not an intended part of the game, therefore the game should not be teaching you it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, but I also think there should be some support for this because there's a thing in building like software. I'm going to take a step away from esports for a second here and just think about business for a second. Okay. If you're not helping someone realize, I know.
Mr. CEO.
Whatever.
He runs his own business.
My point when I'm saying this is the fact that the thing you want to try and do when people first get onto your platform, and change the word platform to game, is to help them realise value as fast as you can. If someone has to grind through 20 hours of utter frustration being killed for reasons they can't discern, for being reported for things they don't even know exist in the game, how is that fair or all a positive experience for them? It's not going to be. So whilst I don't think the game necessarily has to teach you about things that will evolve as it progresses, about the tech, as you say, there needs to be either out-of-game support for it or something in the game that at least helps you gel in with the community, because no one wants to be that hindrance to their team that's getting reported and flamed. There's enough of that already in games. It doesn't have to be something that just happens because you don't know enough about the game. And that's the one thing I think needs to change. There has to be some support by Ubisoft fronted up, and I'm sorry, but the stuff on their website isn't enough. Endorsing the odd video from a YouTuber isn't enough. There needs to be official resources to learn the game to a competitive level. Otherwise, you're just wasting people's time. They're getting frustrated. You're losing players, and the game isn't going to grow.
I mean,
the resources is a good idea.
I don't want to necessarily dispute that point, but I do kind of want to bring back up something that when we talked with Pengu a little bit about what would happen if you were to put more observation tools into Siege, and then this is actually a point that I made and Shas, the G2's head coach, agreed with. The idea that in-game, if you were to give people more resources to understand like how something works, then there will be more people who will be able to completely or more fully grasp different concepts to the point that it does inherently raise everyone's like player level up to a much higher standard, which just by having something that mentions, hey, bandit tricking is a thing in game, more people will be more inspired to go through and try that. Will it inherently mean that more people will have a higher understanding, therefore more people who are already good will have to get better to continue to stay at the top? Absolutely. But if we're trying to figure out how to give more people more control over how the game works, both from a much more experienced, a much more veteran playstyle already, and trying to at the same time make it so that new players aren't completely daunted by everything that you can do in Siege, then ultimately if you don't keep things simplistic in Siege, because it's so creative and it can sometimes be a sandbox of strategy, then the obvious problem is if you give players too many resources, then it becomes information overload, and there's a difference between holding your hand and dragging you through existence, right? Like grabbing you and just like pushing you from like age 2 to age 5 to all of a sudden now you're in high school graduating with a diploma and you don't know what the heck you just experienced, right? Like there is a thing is too much.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's about trying to drip feed that, right?
I think Dez's camera just froze, by the way. There it is.
Oh, no, he's back.
I said it's a drip feed, right? Like, you don't want to give it to them all at once, but like if it's look, you want to play Bandit, cool, you picked him as one of your favourite operators, sweet. Here are the basics to play this game. You've got to shoot some people, reinforce some walls, and here's what your gadget does, and go and have a bit of fun. If you then want to go and start studying when you hit, say, level 5 or a certain level on this operator once you played them enough times, here's some other cool stuff you didn't know about, and just drip feeding little nuggets to people over time and going, here you go, eventually you'll have the full nugget, but right now you don't want to give yourself a bellyache from having too much sugar, right? Things can just build up over time, and that's the best way of doing it, I think, but that is missing massively at the minute.
What I think would be kind of cool, because I, like I said, agree with kind of Chowder's original point that I don't think tech should be taught in the game, because I think it comes under the umbrella of strategy, and I don't think it's a game's job to teach strategy. But I think it'd be really cool if there was some kind of collaborative project between Ubisoft and like a certain number of pro players where they have a I don't know, online resource, whether it's a YouTube channel or something, with like really like bite-sized videos where players can explain really basic things. And there's in a tutorial be like a link, or it'll be like, visit this whatever to go and see this. And so then it's like, it's not in the game is teaching you the things that are explicitly in the game, i.e. you're playing Bandit, you can place a battery down and that will prevent an exothermic charge being placed, or like however they want to word it. If you want to learn more about how Bandit is used, visit and you can have like some pro in this like 1 minute long video or whatever explaining that, and then it's an online resource, it's accessible, it's easy to find, or I would hope that in my idealistic way of imagining this, it would be accessible and easy to find from multiple different ways, and it, you know, it's a good way of bringing the casual or the new player into some kind of meeting with the competitive world, because they're getting to know who these like pro players are and they're becoming invested and blah blah blah, they're learning more, they can go back and use that. Like I think like a kind of collaborative project like that would be a good way of doing it, and then therefore you don't have to have all the shit like thrown in game. And it's not even just about overwhelming people, it's about, this is the game, here are the mechanics present in the game, if you come up with something cool, that's great, and that can become a default strategy, but it's not the job of the game to teach you strategy that's been invented by someone else.
See, you can make that stuff. And while you were talking about it, I'm quite literally reminded of an old idea I had for something that's very similar to that. So #content. But the issue does become, if leaving a redirect goes a long way, but to not leave a redirect means that it does become just more problematic for new players to try to figure something else out and to become more invested because they understand more about the strategy. So you're right, if UB were to put more towards what other people, or just hire people, straight up say, hey, we're gonna, take a couple of, either content creators or just people who we know can make this stuff, regardless of whether they were known for it previously. If they can make it and then just, produce it, and we can leave just a link back to it, or say, hey, look up this resource. Like, there's a website for this. Go to R6
a fucking QR code.
Just, exactly. Something super simplistic does help.
Yeah.
But if you don't, you can make the resource, but people just won't find it unless, then again, how hard is it to really Google how to play Bandit, right? Like,
but the point is about having a centralized place that's easy accessible, where you know where you're going from the get go. Yeah. Whereas like if you Google how to play Bandit, you don't know if you're getting it from a credible source. You don't know if it's a source that's up to date. You don't know if it's like whatever. So and the same with kind of like maps and stuff like that, right? So whereas if there are some actual like Ubisoft controlled / commissioned project where that is, being ensured that it's up to date and it has got that centralized platform, then that's way more accessible. And I just think, I was thinking of if we look beyond esports, I think the idea of having that stuff in game and being in a tutorial is almost like signing up for a YouTube account and it being like, oh, here's our tutorials on how to make videos. It's like, no, that's your job to figure out.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, so yeah, no, I agree with you, Jacob.
I think there's a lot that Ubisoft can do to help the onboarding experience, like when it comes to teaching players things. I think the addition of, and this is something that they did a while ago, and most people consider it a joke, but I know from experience, from teaching a lot of new players, it's infinitely helpful. They added a 1 to 3 star difficulty rating on operators, right? And for some of those, I personally disagree. For example, they have Ash as 2-star difficulty.
Nope. Shouldn't be there. Absolutely
and
not.
And they have Thermite as 1-star difficulty. Right? Which I think is...
I'd bump him up, but I don't know if I'd bump him to a 2 or a 3.
I disagree with that, but for the most part, they do have sort of... You're given a bunch of operators when you start, right? But for a lot of people, they have absolutely no idea what the fuck they do. Right? And those little operator highlight intros can only show so much.
Especially when they're cinematic and don't really relate to how the operator themselves is played. Yeah. You get a general idea of what their ability set might be, and then nothing else past that, right?
Yeah, I mean, what the hell is the castle video, right?
I mean, like, look, this is what pains me the most, right? Is I've gone on to Ubisoft's official resource, Arxis Academy, and the first video that you see here, flagged at the top of the page, is rank up instantly from silver to high ranks. Now, for Jacob, that might tingle him a little bit, and he'll get a bit tingly in his balls or something, right? But for everyone else, it is the most... For everyone else, it is just so bait. That is not a learning resource. It is a YouTuber trying to make money at the end of the day. Yeah. I completely get Ubisoft want to partner with big YouTubers because it's good content reach. Fine. It's not a learning resource. It's not fit for purpose. Sorry, guys, if you're a YouTuber, by the way. Fuck you, Jacob. For everyone else, I'm sorry.
Oh, man. How many more dunks can I take before I just decide to retire and take my 24,000 subs to Malta with me?
You don't take your subs with you. I got those from the divorce.
You can't retire if you've never been paid, first of all.
I have been paid, and your reference has just fallen by the wayside.
Not for cast, babe.
Not for casting, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Not for casting. Actually, you know what? Maybe to keep with the whole onboarding question, but keep it back to casting, what are your guys' thoughts? I have an opinion on this as well, and I've touched on it a few times. Maybe not on the podcast, actually. The idea that Siege, because of the complex nature of the game, requires casters to do their job, which is to still sell the game to people, but to do it while over-explaining the absolute crap out of it.
I think... So, from a viewer perspective, and as someone who watches a lot of esports, and then I'll let the caster's perspective go through, but from the viewer perspective, as someone with 2,500 hours in Siege, when a caster starts explaining something, that's like me tuning out until they start, actually talking about what's going on screen.
Yeah.
Like, for those of you who don't know, what he's doing is bandit tricking, and bandit tricking is... Right? But for the new players, right? And this isn't a criticism of casters, right? This is more me being a jaded, cynical asshole. But so for a lot of the new players, they don't know these things, right? Like, I was playing with my brother the other day and he got bandit tricked, and I go, "Oh, you got bandit tricked. Hold on, let me fix that for you." And I bucked above it and shot the bandit, and I go, "Oh, okay, you're good to go." And he just goes, "What the fuck is a bandit trick?" Right? And so when casters start talking about that, the only thing that I can think of is the Dota 2 newcomer stream. Right?
The fact that they have a newcomer stream is
they don't have one. They don't have one anymore. They haven't had one for a few years. But
have they not really? I mean, I remember watching it before, because every time the international comes on, I'm only ever watching just the internet as the only thing from Dota that I ever see. But I do remember this.
In this specific instance, when the newcomer stream was happening, it used to be that you would have 2 newcomer-friendly casters, right? Like, one year, it was fucking Day9, the only good streamer on this platform, right? And so I think it was literally just Day9 and Purge explaining the basics of Dota, of what's going on, and Day9 going, and Purge just in a monotone voice talking about what's happening. And then they switched it up, which I think Siege could really, really use, which is little info boxes. Will, like, every 20 or 30 seconds, casters are talking about gold. Gold info box pops up. You get gold from killing players, taking bounties, and farming creeps. Right? Or, so you can say, "Oh, he got bandit tricked," and then a little info box can pop up. Bandit tricking is the process of quickly switching bandit batteries so as to destroy any explosives on the opposite side of the reinforced wall. Right?
Yeah. I can see the merit to it.
So I think there's a balance. I don't think there's a right answer to this question.
No.
I think that, so it's interesting. It kind of works on a gradient, right? Is that at the very top tier ones, so let's say SI level, you're more likely to have the casters be required or, preferred to explain things a bit more, because the audience is going to be wider reaching. The further down the tiers you go, the less you require that, because the more likely it is going to be dedicated viewers who are enthusiasts who are putting themselves through watching that.
Right.
So a part of it is about, like, the context of what it is you're casting and taking that into account. And also, like, various things that you have to focus on are different. For example, if you're casting tier 2, your main job really is to sell the players. So even if someone's doing really, really shit, like part of your job is to essentially be advertising them to orgs who could be picking them up, and things like that. So I personally don't think I would want a newcomer stream, and I think that might be a little bit of almost a controversial thing, because as a caster, I don't want to be the one who's lumped in with having to give that stream, having to do that stream. Like, I work hard to be good at my job, and I don't want to have to be doing the baby talk one. But secondly, when I got into watching Overwatch. Now, I'd obviously been playing it for a while, but not at a particularly high level. I was arse at it before I started watching esports. I learned so much from listening to the casting and from paying attention to what was going on, and I don't personally think that keeping a really low ceiling in a cast is particularly helpful. And I also think a lot of the people who are going to be investing money in going to see these events, in things like the pilot program, in Siege, in stuff like that, are the people who understand the game pretty well.
Yeah.
So while I agree that there are definitely things you have to bring up in the cast to a certain level where you are explaining things that to the average competitive player are a little bit basic, but to the average player overall are probably actually quite insightful, great, like that's fine. As long as you're not being too low skill ceiling or too high skill ceiling in terms of like where you're doing that. You want to be somewhere nice in the middle and going to each. But I think that you can't alienate the people who are either end of that spectrum, because some of them some of them are providing you a lot of money, and some of them you want to onboard so that they can then provide you a lot of money. So I've seen a lot of people in Siege talk about, it'd be great if we had like a newcomer stream and like a really sort of basic one, and I'm just sort of like, I don't think that condescending and infantilizing an audience is the most conducive to being able to pick them up. And if you're like me, I am incredibly stubborn, and if there's something that I don't know in a game, I'm not going to ask someone what that is. I will keep watching it until I find my answer, and I'm certainly not going to go and watch the newcomer stream where on my Twitch channel, anyone who's friends with me will see that I'm watching the newcomer stream. Like, that's something I would be embarrassed by, which is maybe a me problem, but like that is something I would be embarrassed by. It's like, okay, yeah. I would way rather just like learn from context, and I personally would want to pay the same respects to the people who are getting into the game.
My thoughts are a bit different. In some ways the same. I think like you should adapt to the cast based on what tier you're at, but like looking back over the last 18 months of going from Prem, where it's very jokey and a bit of a laugh because you're surrounded by UK people watching who want to be there for the laugh. Like literally my reception was positive because I took the piss out of demo 24/7. That's all I did. I didn't really talk about Siege much. I just took the piss out of demo.
I mean, that's
you
not
then
hard.
compare that to events like the OJ Pit Minor, looking at SI. SI was probably the greatest example of how me and Ace approach things, and how our casts have kind of always been engineered ever since. Is that my philosophy is you have 3 tiers in casting. You have your level 1, which is the what happened, the level 2, which is how it happened, and 3 of the why and the wider effect of what that was, essentially. So you can start off by keeping it very simple and introducing newcomers at the level 1 stage. Those who are more experienced, like Chowder, will buy into level 1. They're like, okay, I'm listening, I'm starting to get bored, and then level 2 kicks in. When you start talking about the how, what was it that actually took place in case you missed it, it helps those that didn't quite get the full context of the situation understand. You then get into level 3, which is where you so often hear guys like Kix go to, which is when you really start exploding and looking into the actual small things behind it, what actually the impacts on the later stages of the round that's going to be, why did the players make that decision. You feed that then through to the experienced viewers who already know level 1 and level 2, but you've also brought the newer viewers along for the ride as well. And if you can go up and down that quite nicely, you can even start at level 3 and go the other way if you've already explained something before, but being able to go up and down that sort of chain, I think, is the best way to make a really viewable experience. And that's what we did at SI. Get ridiculously excited, add 20% to our base excitement levels permanently, and then just explain the shit out of stuff to a way that everyone liked it. And we saw the outcome. I think we were generally pretty well received. I mean, that's the best way you can cast.
Just from my perspective, having not heard you in anything aside from Prem and then OGA Pit, I heard everything and went, these guys are smashing it on the main stream on the first day, and I was blown away as someone who understands the concept of the game. I know, which is
never cast before OGA. It was mad.
It's ridiculous. I don't think I was trying to say that you had casted before, I was just saying I knew you from OGA, and then I knew you after Prem, and then everything else. I'm just like, wow, everything seems like it clicks. Which, I think I was trying to maybe view it a little bit from from the perspective of somebody who probably doesn't have nearly as much of a grasp on it as some other people do. Like I put myself into that mindset sometimes. I sometimes just want to like completely just turn my brain off and watch a cast, but in so many other cases I want to, you know, dissect things. It's me being a movie buff and being a film student, it's very hard for me to turn off the analytical part of my brain whenever I'm watching a film, because I want to, you know, break it down, you know, like section by section, and, you know, analyze whether I think the plot worked out. Did the cinematography have something else to lead into like the overall message? I do that every time. Sometimes I hate myself for doing it, but it has a very similar effect when you're watching, you know, a broadcast where you think you kind of already understand how things are supposed to work, and being able to take a step back and look at it and go, I think for all intents and purposes, if somebody had never come into a Siege broadcast before, and this is the first time that they're ever watching it, these guys are finding a way to make it engaging at the level that, you know, even normies could understand. Like, and I don't really know how much of a challenge that is, because Geo had a point. At T2, you're trying to sell the players in the story more so than you're trying to sell the game to the people who probably aren't nearly as experienced in it, because it's a more dedicated viewership. And on my side of things, I was using it a lot more for practice, because again, at the time Challenge League had come around. I hadn't done a whole bunch of, you know, other casting aside from that. Siege is the first game I've ever done, but to do it in that context meant that it wasn't more about figuring out the super basics. It was more just, how do you take the concepts that already exist and spin them to create a storyline based upon, you know, how those concepts play out in game. And you obviously had a bit of a tougher, well, I mean, did you find it harder to go through that explanation? I mean, because you obviously had to, if you're on the main, you know, the mainstream for anything big, like when it came time for you to begin to break down some super basic ideas about, like, I mean, what was the first game you guys had? It was SSG versus Navi on
Rampy
Club.
Getting an ace in game number 1. That made it so fucking easy.
That did make it easy. Okay, so maybe it wasn't as hard as I'm making it out to be.
Nah, I mean, to be fair, like, I think at that kind of level, when you and this is the thing that I miss, the thing that kind of sucks about home casting, right? Like European Open Clash this weekend, there comes some games where I was just so bored of seeing border so many times over, and just being in a home environment where it gets a bit warm sometimes as well. You're never going to be able to give the same level of cast in a home environment to what you would be in a live studio, right? So being in SO, when you stop around there, you're dressed up nicely, you've had your makeup done, you feel fucking great. And so you can get on there and give it all this bottle and energy. You don't mind explaining the basics because it all feels super exciting because of where you are at the time. And if you can make a simple concept sound exciting, it doesn't matter how basic it is, even Chowder's going to fucking love it. Like, if he can enjoy listening to an SO broadcast with how explained some ideas became, it goes to show that in the right environment, any cast can be made to sound exciting. It's just very hard to maintain that in an energy level, maybe where you aren't in a studio in a big place like Montreal or something like that.
Oh my god, that I literally, like, everything you said just then, I was thinking is so true. And I think a lot of people who've never casted before don't quite acknowledge or understand how big a difference casting in a studio or on LAN versus casting at home is, because, like, okay, so the thing with LAN is you have the energy of everything going on around you. You can probably hear the crowd, probably see the stage, stuff like that. In a studio, it's like, that's the work environment, right? It's like, I'm in the right work environment for what the job is that I am doing. You have the proper equipment. You have your producers are in the next room, or they're in the, you know, whatever, they're very nearby. You can speak to them really easily. You don't have to worry about the clean feed being working or not. You don't have to worry about overheating. You don't have to worry about noises happening outside. You don't have to worry about how comfortable you are sitting in a chair that is not designed. Because here's the thing, most casters stand when casting, but at home it's a lot harder, because you have to have your webcam framed so that it can see you. You have to have your microphone. You don't want to start bending your boom pole once you've done the intro so that you can stand up and be like, oh yeah, okay, it's time to cast. You know what I mean? So it's like the whole environment of working in a studio is so much better, and being in the flesh with your co-caster so huge. Being able to use hand signals, being able to use eye contact, being able to just, like, one of the biggest things in casting is how you pick up and hand off when changing who is talking, but being able to have the physical interaction with your co-caster while doing that as well adds so much to it. It adds to the fluidity of it. It adds to the smoothness. It adds to how well you're able to execute things like that. And if you can't see your co-caster, not only on a webcam, but also just right beside you, like it's not the same. It is so much harder to do well. And because you're not in that right environment when you're casting from home, it's very, very difficult to be able to get in the right mental space for it and to be as fully enthused about it. Even if it's like two teams that are absolutely amazing, it's very, very difficult to sit there and be like, I am so enthused about doing this right now. I'm so ready to go, because you already know that you're kind of being shot in the foot and you're already at a disadvantage and you're not going to do as good a job as you could be doing in a studio on LAN. And it just is a fact of life. Most casters will do their best to do a good job when casting from home, but already the environment's working against you. And like the extent to which that matters is not negligible. Jacob, you'll get it one day.
I mean, that's the hope.
Wow.
I actually meant it, like, you know.
And then everyone else laughed, and it put more sting onto it. Now I feel bullied on my own platform yet again.
No, it's just funny
I
because
love
every
all
time
of you
I've been
so fucking much. I'm sorry, I spit.
Every time I've been mean to you, like the chat's just reacted, and I'm nothing if not a whore for affirmation. So
I know.
You could have just stopped before for affirmation, but whatever.
Very good. Jacob loved that far more than you will ever know.
Such a chauvinistic pig. This is why women in esports never get anywhere, because the men act like this.
Don't make me pull that
SMH my head.
Geo, can you stop being so homophobic?
Jesus.
Fun fact.
Disagreeing with me is homophobia.
Chowder, when we first became friends, straight up,
I thought Geo absolutely was a lesbian.
He's straight up just like
100%,
spoke to me,
100%.
like being like, yeah, because you're gay, and I was like,
100% thought her.
I'm not.
Well, because roommate is
literally
sometimes code for girlfriend, right? So I just assumed it was
said to you, did Mel tell you this? I was like, did Mel tell you that? Because Mel, those who don't know, is obsessed on social media with me.
I've thought about DMing you so many times with me, like, is she okay? Like, are you okay? Like, what's going on?
She's really something. I've been into her streams a couple of times, and she will have a picture of me on her stream, and every time she gets a kill, she'll kiss it. Like, it's...
It's great. Love Mel.
But yeah, so Chowder straight up thought I was gay from the get-go, even though I'd given absolutely no indication to that being the fact. So don't come at me with that homophobia bullshit, because you know that you're stirring the pot, twat.
Please continue to dunk on him as hard as this, because this is great content.
Jacob, you'll get what you fucking deserve soon. Don't you worry.
I'm working on it, Dad. Shut up.
I can't wait to see the clips from this podcast.
You act like anything from this podcast is getting clipped. We're in siege. Nothing gets clipped ever.
Yeah, but...
And now we have a couple seconds of dead silence, because that happens every podcast too. Nice job. We're still working on that.
It took about 100 minutes until we got there, and we all wanted to stop talking. So, hey, it works.
So
I'm amazed it's taken Geo like this short amount of time to quieten up. Normally she can't stop fucking talking for hours.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
I mean, there's a reason she's in casting. She gets paid to never show. She needed to be the one that was on that that legendary Overwatch cast that was nothing but 9 to 10 hours of just straight rip without a co-caster.
I was on a stream the other day with Redeye, who I've met before, and we've hung out and we get on very well. And one thing that we learned very quickly when we first met and hung out and got quite drunk was that we were both the sorts of people who will just talk and talk and talk and talk. And so when I was on this stream the other day with him, it went on for about 4 hours when it was intended to be about an hour and a half because we just had so much to talk about.
I mean, the best part about talking to Redeye is just asking him what the proper way to spell esports is and just getting it wrong every time.
On purpose, so he reacts to
it first in Overwatch.
Yeah, it's riled about that.
Yeah. Because it's lowercase e and then a dash and then capital S sports.
It's like,
and I will not accept anything otherwise.
Another example is I had a call with Stokes recently, just like to chat. And originally I reckon it wasn't intended to be particularly long. We were on call for 8 hours.
Oh, Stokes doesn't shut up. That man does not know how to stop talking.
I went to bed at 10 a.m. that night because we were on the call for like 8.5 hours just talking about random shit. So
yeah, I don't know that Stokes knows what silence is, which isn't a bad thing for a caster, but when you're trying to, talk to him, I love you, Sam.
As long as you're willing to shut the fuck up and let your co-caster talk sometimes, there's nothing wrong with being a talker.
Yeah. I mean, hey,
that's the big one.
Chowder, for your sake, just be happy that we already got our episode with Stokes out of the way, so now we have the entire rest of the season.
Our episode with Stokes was the longest episode we've ever done.
It was not the longest episode.
It was 2 hours and 45 minutes.
It was not. Well, okay, hold on. The recording might have been, but then we cut out the part where we were watching the Steel Wave panel reveal live on stream.
That was 5 minutes long.
That was like 25 minutes long. That wasn't even that. Hold on, I'm finding the episode. It's not that long. I gotta do it on Spotify. Rip.
Jacob, I can do this right now.
I'm doing it. I'm
check out Hammer Podcast on Spotify.
Technologically literate. Oh, hey, speaking of other podcasts on Spotify, I recently had the pleasure of helping out a good friend of ours, Mr. Parker Mackay, out with his new podcast called 6 on 6 that he does with Troy Bro Canadian.
Which, go listen to that. It's great.
I think the first episode...
Did you teach him how to pay to put his podcast on Spotify?
Yeah, and we talked about how he needed to get the audio version of it and a few other things. Like I was more than happy to help him out because the way that this works is Chowder throws up the stream graphic, does the stream, then I get everything, do all the back end work, wait for my computer to export for an hour and a half, wait for it to upload for an hour and a half, and then put it on all distribution platforms. Like, I have the hard part of the job, and Chowder's over here just in Patriots caps dunking on me every 3 seconds and just being a part of...
It's good to know that between your partnership, you're the one with the hard part of the job doing the back end work.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the looks and the brains. He's just, Frankenstein's monster over there. But I'm sorry. Apologies. You're Igor. It's okay. Don't worry. One of us has to build the monster. The other one just goes, "Yes, master," and just sort of pulls the chain to lift the body.
Okay,
if anyone's Frankenstein's monster.
First one, I just checked.
You're
right. It was 2.5 hours with the podcast with Stokes. 2 hours and 26 minutes. You're right.
That's right.
Okay. Now shut up, because the other thing that I was going to mention. I will call you MatPat again on stream. I swear to God. Oh, I just did. There's something to go back to. What was the point I was about to make? I just completely forgot it.
Congratulations.
Fuck.
Around casting.
We're talking about other podcasts. Yeah, so the podcast that Intero's doing now with Canadian, he mentioned something about, I think at the very beginning was they wanted to start the podcast because now Siege podcasts are beginning to come into their own a little bit more. And honestly, I'm happy that we've been able to be a part of this recently, where more people within either the esports side of things or just I kind of think in Siege in general, it's becoming more of a thing that people kind of want to take in and consume. Yeah. We've been doing it for a bit, but we've also gone hard on the marketing. I think we probably have laid claim to the best Siege podcast Twitter account across the whole of the internet. I don't think there's any way that you can take that away from us at this point.
Yeah, because there's two of them. It's us and Logic Bomb, and Logic Bomb literally just makes hey, there's a new Logic Bomb tweet out, and ours
whereas
we pretend it's a sentient
is,
hammer. Yeah.
Yeah. Or that the account itself is sentient. But the best part about it is you have no idea whether it's Chowder or myself tweeting from that thing, so it's pure anonymity, but it can only be one of two people. It's great.
It's great.
But I love how we're doing more and more of these, and the community is not only saying we're willing to produce them, they're also saying, hey, we're willing to consume them at the same time. Doing really, really long things like this is it's a challenge to produce in some ways, but it's also something that's super gratifying that we want to keep on coming back to. One, because we can keep on getting guests on that have different opinions on, lots of different things within the scene, but we also have the ability to just keep it going because people already say that they want to keep on watching it over and over again. Regardless of what, Helby might say sarcastically in chat about the podcast or whatnot, or us bullying Affy, all at the same time, we're still able to keep on making this stuff. And I think the fact that we have we started with almost no CG sports podcasts aside from B-Leaguers, and now we have 5 over the span of 3 months? Like, we're already coming a long way.
So there's 4 that are...
Right, I mean, Veli's been doing on the flank for a long time.
Oh, no, there were
flanks,
2.
On the flank was Gears.
It made the Siege transition. I mean, it made it pretty effectively.
Yeah, and then,
he's been doing it in Siege for a long time.
Yeah, I think pretty much almost immediately after Veli got on the USN desk, he like started doing episodes of On the Flank for Siege.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think it's there's a lot of conversations that people like to have about Siege, and people like talking about Siege almost as much as they like playing it, which is sort of a good thing, because we're all idiots who can't shut up. So when you have discussions on Twitter, there's only so much you can say in 240 characters.
Yeah.
Right? And so
Twitter
sometimes it's just better to say, like, look, you can get someone's opinion on, the European, you can get Pengu's opinion on the European League format in 240 characters or 580 characters if he makes 2 tweets about it.
Or a 3-hour stream with paint up the whole time.
Which is still funny.
Right? Or you could stick him on a fucking podcast and talk to him about it, right? You could talk to what happened to Team Secret. You could talk about all of these different things that you can't really elaborate on in text format. And I think that's something that the community is starting to realize, right? It's why people have been posting more and more clips to the subreddit, because the clips are way better than like fucking just...
Well, there was that whole call to arms.
Yeah.
Was that on this podcast?
That was on this podcast.
That was this one. Yeah.
That was us and Parker.
Yeah.
But the idea is a podcast can put you into an environment where you feel like comfortable or, like more willing to talk about, I guess, certain parts within a specific situation. And you can clip like that one particular moment that does have like the most importance that people are like, like clamoring for or asking about. But sometimes it takes elaboration and explanation prior to getting to that point that then helps make the clip itself hit home hard. So it's not something that you can do nearly as effectively if you were to just, blurt it out on Twitter, whether it be in a video or it's, like whatever it might be. It's just finding a place to foster this kind of discussion has been made more difficult. I think if we can use a recent example of that, I don't know why this CaliberJacob spam is happening in chat. I just noticed it.
CaliberJacob.
Kill me.
Caliber.
Remember the space between the 2 names, guys.
It's important.
I have to make merch
Caliber
with Caliber
space
Jacob on it. I have to make merch with this now because you will all literally buy it from me. You keep saying it, so you obviously want it.
I will get it tattooed on my forehead. Yeah.
You will fucking get a neck tattoo, like right under your beard line. Just get it all right.
No, do it somewhere where your facial hair can grow over, so that if you ever feel like shaving,
I'll get it right here, and instead of no regrets, it'll say no space.
But I think the example I was going to use of this was recently. We had a whole spout of Bikini Body having a bit of a tough time when it came to trying to elaborate on points in text format on Twitter, and it didn't quite go over well. And then he mentioned afterwards, I don't know if it was his exact terminology for it, but he's like, Twitter sometimes is a bit of a garbage platform for wanting to discuss things like this because it's difficult to...
there's a reason that I refer to it as a hell site, yeah.
It really is, because you can reply...
If Twitter's the hell site, then what's Reddit?
Reddit...
I don't go to Reddit.
Some of your best burns are on Reddit. You can't tell me you don't go
Reddit's the place I go to like dunk on people like it's the fucking Thunderdome. I don't know why people use that place seriously.
I don't know. Reddit is kind of the remnant of whatever forum boards used to be back in the early to mid 2000s. Like from my perspective, who was on forum boards, I was a part of a game clan at one point called Fever. God, that was a weird part of high school. But Twitter is almost like
CaliberJacob.fever.
Yeah, it was just Caliber back then, actually. Like the Jacob part wasn't even. Yeah, you might even be able to go find the old profile. Like you might be able to go look for it again. Anyway, but Twitter is almost like you take the forum board part of things, but it's instant access. Instant replies, notifications can come across immediately, and when you already have a following on that kind of stuff, and you say anything that's even remotely out of line to a good portion of people, and you're not jumping on the bandwagon, then it's a very if you're not with us, you're against us attitude, and it's not something I think has like. Bikini's right. It's not sometimes the best platform to discuss it. So just being able to create another platform for that kind of thing is helpful, just so that people know there is a place where this kind of stuff can be spoken about with the people that you want us to talk to. It's just a matter of whether or not you're willing to sometimes sit through, you know, a whole discussion before you get to the thing that you consider to be the juiciest, I guess. And sometimes we wouldn't even talk about it because we're under NDA.
I mean, he translated those tweets into an 1.5 hour long video.
He did.
Right? So
how much of that video was just him reacting to Much Flight's video, though?
I don't know. I don't watch YouTube.
That's fair.
I
do remember watching the video.
I watch
but I don't remember how much
Hearthstone and I watch
was
Cats, and that's about it.
Jesus.
The other thing is also, like, all the things that you said, obviously people get a better platform where they can elaborate and express themselves more, you know, in a better way of articulating themselves. But it's not just that. It's that for the same reason that people like YouTube collaborations, people enjoy watching friendships. Like, that sounds really weird, but people enjoy watching people that they like and respect interacting with each other because it's more entertaining than just kind of having one person sit and talk about things on their own. And that's also gets a little bit monotonous and things like that. And like, it's more entertaining if you're like, oh, there's like a couple of people who I like and they're going to be talking together, I'm probably going to be enjoying this. And that's sometimes just nicer than being like, oh goody, a 24 tweet thread that I get to read. And so, like, yeah, it's you know, people enjoy obviously listening to about the subject which they're interested in, but when you get to listen to multiple people who you like or whatever, you get to see kind of the camaraderie around it as well. Like, it's just way better.
I think there was a comment on an episode, or not an episode. I did a player. I've done a lot of player interviews over like the past like couple of weeks at this point. Just one-on-one situation. Like, I cap it at like an 1.5 hours. Like, we can talk about like mostly like one like player story. But there was one comment that I saw recently that said that they liked the interviews better than the Hammered podcast, and then there was a reply to that one that said Hammered is too like buddy, like Hammered is too friendly among the people that are on it. And that's kind of the point, right? Yeah. If we were just going to sit down in a formal environment, then you probably wouldn't even want to be here unless you had something that you specifically like wanted to say, like you had a story that you wanted to tell. We're over here like shooting the shit about the way that game balancing works and onboarding for a good 1.5 hours, and it will make for great content. It's just a matter of like the people involved and the opinions that they have. It's not a matter of whether, you know, it gets to that super formal, you know, aspect, even though you think you might not be able to learn something in a casual environment that might be the best place for you to learn something at all, right?
I mean, my philosophy for, and I guess to get a little inside baseball here, is the way that we find guests is usually me or Jacob will say, hey, I want to get X person on, and then the other person will say, do we have a slot? No. And then the other person will say, yes, let's see if they want to get someone on. And then if we want to do a 4-person show instead of a 3-person show, does that person have anyone they want to bring on?
Yeah.
Right? So, for example, when we brought on Affy, we said, hey, Affy, do you have anyone who you want to bring on with you? And he gave us a name. That person was busy with scrims at that time. And so we said, is there anyone else? Just give us a list of names. And then he gave us Luke's name. And so we picked up Luke, right? And so sort of our philosophy for Hammered is we either bring on people to talk about interesting topics. So, for example, we had the CEO of Oxygen on last podcast because there's really not a lot of, you know...
There's not a lot of tape on Oxygen in general.
There's not a lot of
from
tape on Oxygen in general.
From a CEO perspective, it also made it interesting.
Right? Yeah. And then for most of our episodes, what we do instead is we do the inverse, which is we find interesting people and then the topics just reveal themselves naturally. Right?
Usually it's about a current event thing. Like, remember the first thing we talked about when Milos was on? We talked about that villa glitch that people found on the roof of 90. Yeah. And then, like, how it broke the game. Talked about, like, different leagues having different, you know, rule books and how that's meant to be, you know, portrayed. And then Ubisoft also not being able to fix something like that until it gets discovered. Like, they all come out of the woodwork. But that's after you have somebody on who you think can discuss something of relevancy and then dive into it deeper from there, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think when the season starts up again, we'll be talking more and more about esports, like Siege esports specifically, and, you know, how did Rogue do? What does that mean for their performance later? You know, all this kind of stuff. We could talk about the EU Open Clash, but I genuinely don't think that any results there will translate in any way into Pro League.
I would doubt it.
Because the maps aren't going to be there, and they're also going to be adding new operators. And if you think that teams are going to use legitimate strats inside of a charity tournament, I think you're wrong.
No one used a legitimate strategy that whole tournament. The only thing you did get to see was the quality of gunners that you're going to get when it comes around to it.
Yeah, that's it.
Virtus Pro, interestingly, before the whole tournament started, one of the coaches for another EU League team did say Virtus Pro are probably going to win this. They are genuinely the most terrifying team in Europe right now. First thing he did when they won, messaged me saying, told you.
Yeah.
So, one to watch out for.
Yeah. I mean, Virtus Pro, I saw one Reddit comment was like, I think, aside from the few rounds that Virtus Pro obviously didn't take super seriously, just from, the aspect of maybe the whole tournament being played like pro teams just playing nothing but ranked for 2 weeks, or like for 2 weekends, it looks a lot like they have a lot of things under control, and they just look scary, and you could also say they look scary just by virtue of winning the whole thing, but even before they got to that point, everyone's like, oh my gosh, they have the polar bear power now, and it's incredible.
I just remembered one thing on Border. I even messaged Rask around this mid-match, actually. They were playing Coastline, and they were attacking Sunrise and Blue Bar, and about 45 seconds into the round, 2 minutes 50 on the clock, he was on Sledge, got himself inside a penthouse and started smashing the floor open. And I thought, he's doing it because he's trying to clear out whoever's trying to roam below. Fine. 45 seconds left in the round and he's still there, and I'm like, why has he spent a minute and a half smashing up penthouse floor? And they did go on to win the round, but I DM'd him. I was like, just to check, so I think I'm going insane. Did you get baited to the wrong site? And he was like, yeah, brain lags, my bad. I was just like, wow. I thought to myself, there must be no way a pro player is making this kind of mistake. And he was like, genuinely massive brain lag. It was fucking brilliant.
Switched it off.
Right? But so
good.
That's
but
great.
So
good.
When the season starts going up again, we can talk more about specific esports. But the philosophy behind this podcast is we get people, interesting people, on here, and we sit them down in a.
I don't know if I called
casual...
Geo interesting, but we'll make do with what we have.
Oh, shut the fuck up!
We can't re-record this anymore, so I have to
Jacob,
post
you're wearing
this with a picture of
retro
your face on
Taco
it.
Bell fucking t-shirt, all right?
You act like you don't want this t-shirt yourself, Matt Pat.
No, I don't.
What's wrong with you?
What? A lot.
I'm also wearing bright green shorts, if it's any consolation.
Oh, guys, outfit of the days. Who's going next?
I'm prepped for summer. Anyway,
Daye, are you wearing pants? I'd be surprised if you were.
I actually am. This time. Just this time. Normally no, but today, it's like some weird, don't know.
Oh!
He's got
Fluffy bottoms. Yeah, they're cozy as fuck, dude.
Yeah.
What about you, Chowder?
Rate the fit.
I really like your hoodie.
Rate the fit.
I was wearing shorts.
Yellow shorts.
Oh.
Celeste hoodie.
Yeah.
All right. It's a style.
Black Under Armour. Just plain black t-shirt. Newport Shipyard hat.
You had a Patriots hat
right?
at one point.
Wearing a t-shirt and a hoodie and then wearing shorts seems so bizarre. Like, you'd be so warm on top and so cool on the bottom.
There's an aspect to it. It's really comfy.
I just hate pants.
I mean,
no, it's not anything except I don't wear pants unless it's for work because I hate pants. Like, I come home and I get changed into shorts.
I don't wear trousers. Yeah. I don't wear them.
I love how we were just talking about the philosophy behind Hammered and then immediately revert to our default philosophy behind Hammered, which is nothing about C.
Yeah. No, I mean...
Just a total change of subject.
Oh, I mean, it's so good. It's topical.
Whose outfit was best?
Well, we haven't seen yours, Geo.
Oh, right. I'm ripping...
Oh, yeah, the Cloud9 hoodie.
Cloud9 and then just leggings. A bit boring. I got
Comfy
sent
as
this
fuck,
Cloud9
though.
hoodie from Puma, so like that all my Cloud9 stuff came straight from Puma.
Wow.
Which is great because
So
I love
cool.
Cloud9 and I also didn't have to pay for it. So it's like the best of both worlds.
I got sent this hoodie because it's a misprint, so it was $10 off. That's
Nice.
All right. Fair.
But so the philosophy behind Hammered is, to get back to the inside baseball stuff. The philosophy behind Hammered is find interesting people, and the interesting conversations will just happen. Don't go in with an agenda, or if you do have an agenda, keep it as sort of basic as possible. Like, what do we want to talk about today? Well, we have 2 casters on, so I don't know. Let's talk about casting.
We'll obviously dive into their philosophies, and we have a little bit of a UCL, a little bit of Open Clash because it's topical, and then boom, there's so much other stuff that spawned from that, and we didn't have a structure for it either. Just like this just happens naturally.
There'll be no doubt another time and opportunity for me and Geo to come and spew shit for a few hours. It's
absolutely. There's no way we won't get you again.
No, absolutely. Now that
That's
Jacob,
what we do when we hang out together.
now that Jacob is of legal drinking age, we will be making Hammered with Hammered.
Oh, bless him. That's so cute.
At some point, we will be making Hammered with Hammered, where this bottle will become clear again. But
again, it's been clear
I was
once.
actually going to bring alcohol on, and I'm really disappointed in myself that I didn't bring it.
God.
I mean,
it's like noon for us, right?
For me, it's 1 or 2
for me.
Yeah,
it's 3 for
2
me.
p.m.
But
we had to push this podcast back because
it's
Dez.
8 p.m. here.
yeah, because Dez has a real job.
Oh God, responsibilities in the real world. My God.
Well, actually, this show is actually on Monday because it's me and Jacob's days off.
Precisely. You guys are doing it as well.
I don't have another job, so I'm literally
this show is literally Monday at 11 because we're like, okay, how long do we want it to be? 2 hours. Does that give you enough time to render and post the show before Challenger League? Yeah, I think so. Okay, we'll just do that. Right?
Yeah, no, we made it work, and this is in the middle of CL after Invite was done. And we're like, well, before Invitational, we had no plan for this, and then like 3 weeks after Invite, we're like, all right, fine, we should probably end up starting this thing that we've been talking about for a month.
Let's just talk to Candor. Let's get some graphics. We'll get this thing up and running. And then it took like a week. And we did it. So, moral of the story, kids: if we can start a podcast, you can't too. Because we're not good at this.
Let's get some guys together and talk some mad shit. Easy.
Yeah. No, moral of the story is starting a podcast, and we have this big fancy graphics package, which is, it's fancy, but On the Flank does it with like a banner bar at the bottom. And you can do it with that.
It doesn't have to be super crazy, yeah. Like I know,
people don't watch the graphics. They're looking all around the screen. They're reading chat. They're on Twitter. They're listening to the shit that you're talking.
There's a reason it has audio only formats too. Yeah, don't worry.
we have the graphics because we're vain, self-centered assholes, and we like to pretend that we're professional.
Wow, you realize Candor also made the 6-on-6 graphics, so you just called both Canadian and Intero self-centered assholes too.
That's correct.
Nice.
You really had to go there. Oh God!
You only said that as bait because you knew exactly what he was going to ask.
Exactly.
Like you didn't
exactly.
Know. Don't pretend
We've been doing this long
know.
enough that I can read them like a book in some cases. It's all bait. Everything we do on the show is bait for the other guy to dunk. Anyway, I don't really have anything else to necessarily go over because, again, everything just kind of spawns in naturally unless someone had one last thing that they wanted to do before this podcast actually hits a 2-hour mark.
I do want to discuss something very important.
What's that?
Right.
This isn't going to be very important at all, is this?
No, that's not. I'm bracing myself.
This isn't, yeah.
Korean or Brazilian barbecue?
Oh, Korean barbecue's better than Brazilian barbecue, but I will take both.
Oh.
Brazilian barbecue's lovely, but Korean barbecue's better. All right? Fucking hell.
I don't know what just fell.
Jesus Christ.
This has been the Hammered Podcast with Geo and Dez. We'd like to thank you both for coming on and spending a few hours with your evening with us.
Did something just happen? I don't know what just happened.
I guess you're welcome.
What? I think we're all.
Jacob's standing in the middle of his room.
Yeah, for the audio listeners, Jacob is just sort of standing there. I think we can't tell what he's doing.
I heard a thunk and then nothing changed.
Was that not you throwing your headphones?
No, my headphones have been on the whole time.
Something came off his desk. Something came off his desk.
I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Anyway.
Oh, my keyboard fell down. Anyway, keep going.
Like,
it's just this thing, just my MIDI keyboard.
Just like inconspicuous.
Yeah, it just fell over. That was it.
That was your
literal keyboard.
My actual.
You mean keyboard like those?
My actual MIDI controller, yes, because I do. If you haven't been able to tell from the 4 freaking guitars I have sitting here every single podcast episode, I do the music, but not very well. I was very confused for a second.
I'm still quite perplexed as to how this has somehow brought us to a conclusion.
Anyway,
Geo, Dez, do either of you have anything you want to promote?
Yeah, my Twitter. I'm nearly at 10,000 followers. No, I mean, that was a joke, but also
Jeez. All right. Well, I'm not going to put her Twitter in the description for this podcast because fuck you, clout chaser.
I mean,
there's not enough people here that if they all follow me, I'd hit 10,000.
Siege has gone quiet now. I think most of the casts are over for a while outside of national leagues.
Yeah.
Don't want to promote your business, you business owner, you.
None of you fucks are going to buy anything from my business. You couldn't afford it, so I'm not going to bother trying to plug it.
We won't buy anything because it's too complex for us to understand.
This goes back to Stokes's, you're broke. You're broke. Like that
You're
thing
broke,
from
bro.
the desk.
You're broke.
You're broke.
Nah, it's B2B
Bro, let me
software anyway.
let me put it to you straight. You are poor. Like that's just how it is. I love it. I love it to bits.
Oh man. Oh my god.
All right. One thing that we can mention before we get out of here is something I've talked about and something Chowder is also wanted to do at some point is we are thinking about doing a Q&A episode at some point. We've been doing this for 12 episodes straight, so we think either like 13th or 14th, if we can't find a guest to bring on, heaven forbid, if we somehow run dry on the people that are willing to withstand 2 hours with us to talk about nothing.
All of the goodwill, yeah.
I was going to say, but we'll probably end up doing that at some point. So if you have something that you want to ask, don't do it in this episode. Don't do it quite yet. Keep questions in mind. I'll probably put up a separate video on it or something that we can go over and like leave comments on. We might leave a redirect to a Reddit thread or a Twitter post or something to make it easier for people who don't want to do the YouTube version, whatever it might be. We can definitely get something like that going, but we have been thinking about it just in the case that we wanted to go back to a double podcast format and then maybe even get some like live questions in from Twitch chat at some point as well. So that's probably it. I'm just really hoping we don't run through enough guests to the point the only content that we have left is a Q&A, which is the lowest form of content in the world.
Excuse me, no, it's not. We could do a reaction video.
Oh, God. We can make TikToks.
It's massively complimentary to know that we were the last guests on the last podcast before you get to the point where you've decided that you've run out.
No, you were literally at the bottom of the barrel.
That low in the barrel.
The bottom of the barrel.
That low.
Both of you.
Get off my fucking podcast.
Though to be fair, based on I have seen Dez in real life, it's not exactly hard to fit Dez into a barrel, so.
No.
Yeah,
bringing
you
the
know
hammer
what?
back.
You know what? Hold on. Wait. Okay, let me just. Okay, we're just gonna push Geo. Just gonna get her off the screen. Okay.
Oh.
Incredible.
Thanks for watching the podcast,
what was
everybody.
going on. I was watching Discord and I had no idea what was going on.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.